Unpopular belief. I mean, I've said it a few times. I don't feel like there's ever enough heart in business. And business can be cutthroat. And of course, there's quotas. Of course, there's deadlines. Of course, there's boards and stock prices and all of those things. But if you want the best out of your business, you have to lead with heart. You have to leverage power skills. You have to teach your people that it is okay to have really strong EQ, and not just okay, it's welcome and it's wanted. And any of these leaders who stick to that, no, just get your job done, just do your work, shut up, don't say anything, I'm telling you, you're doing it wrong. And I will die on the mat saying that, because I've just seen it, I've lived it, I've proven it. And it's so important that leaders get this. It's what modern leadership is. And if you call yourself a leader, you better not be doing that bad stuff.
Leaders that care more, win more.
This is Sparta!
Welcome back to the Spartan Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Kosnick, and this is your podcast for leadership, inspiration, and impact. And today will be no different. This conversation has been one I've been looking forward to for a while since we got to meet each other. And it's not because it's a comfortable conversation, but because it's necessary. And my guest today is Lyndsay Dowd. Lyndsay is a speaker, author, founder, and unapologetic disruptor. My favorite thing about her so far. And she's spent over 2 decades at IBM leading teams at a high level, has taught leadership at Harvard, and today helps organizations dismantle toxic leadership and build cultures that actually work. She's the founder of Heartbeat for Hire, a 2-time best-selling author, and the host of a globally ranked podcast. But titles aside, what makes this conversation important is her willingness to tell the truth about leadership, power, and reinvention. Lyndsay, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I love that intro.
Yeah, we try and get a little added sauce in there for you, and that's how we continue to have this impact. Like I said, I'll ask you my ADD questions, and we'll make this as impactful as possible for everyone listening today.
Love it.
All right, so my first one, I like to ask differently instead of just like tell us about your background.
Sure.
You've led massive organizations, inside massive organizations. You've taught at Harvard, built businesses, and now challenged leadership norms. But what's the real backstory that shaped how you see leadership today?
I mean, I came from, as you said, over 2 decades at IBM, and my family put in 105 years at Big Blue. And so the style of leadership that I grew up with, and when I say I grew up in Big Blue, I mean, my dad was there before I was born. So I saw a lot, and I watched how the culture was in the early days and how it was a branch, and being part of a branch meant that you knew everybody's kids. It meant that you were connected to people on a personal level. It wasn't just a work thing. And it was a culture I really took for granted. I really didn't know that that's not what all business was supposed to be. And I would go into my dad's office in Manhattan and meet his secretaries. At one point, he had 2 blind secretaries, and he's like, I want you to meet them. And their names were like Carol and Carol, or Barbara and Barbara. They had the same name. And I said, sure. So I'm trotting into their office, and I walk in, and it's dimly lit, and they go, hi, Lyndsay. And I look at my dad, and I'm like, you said they were blind. And they go, they're not deaf. And I'm like, oh my God. But like being exposed to all kinds of people and all kinds of abilities was just very normal for me. And that's what my interpretation of business was. And then I got there, and I came in through Lotus, and Lotus was like beer carts and flip-flops. And, we were wild, and it was really fun. And it was, I was in my early 20s, and exactly what it needed to be then. But the kinds of leadership that I was exposed to were really different than what I grew up with. And some of it was good, a lot of it was bad. And I was really kind of exposed to this style of leadership that I never connected with. And that was very sports analogy heavy, very kind of thump your chest, very boys club, very exclusive, like these are the people in my group. And I was never inspired by that. And it took until I had one leader who she promoted me twice. And she asked me, she said, "Hey, Lyndsay, how do you want to run the business?" I was floored, Josh. I'm like, "You're asking me? Really? Oh my gosh." She's giving me autonomy. She's giving me space. She's telling me she trusts me. And I was able to turn that around to my team and do the same. And that was an incredible gift. And it exposed me to what leadership could be. And that I had studied leadership my entire life, truly through school. Every opportunity I had to lead, I took it. And so to be able to see what good leadership finally really felt like, I was like, oh, I know this. This is familiar. And I just wanted more of it. So when I got to lead teams and really got to be that leader myself, the proof was in the pudding. My teams performed. We crushed our numbers 8 ways to Sunday. So yeah, that's what kind of gave me the bug. And I could never let it go.
Yeah, I had a question in here that was around, success and titles, and those aren't nearly enough. But I want to go to, I don't think that's necessarily appropriate right now. You kind of hit on that. What inspired the change for you to leave big corporate and go out on your own?
So it was less inspiration and more out of necessity, because after 23 years at IBM, I was ready for a change, and another company sought me out and said, "Would you come lead a sales team for us?" And I said, yes. And so I packed up my big blue legacy and off I went. And in 6 short months, they fired me. And I was devastated. I thought I was the only executive to ever be fired. I thought no one would ever work with me again. I thought the sky is falling, the world is over, I am a has-been. And it took about a month before I could talk about it. And I asked myself 3 questions. What am I really good at? What do I love to do? And how can I help people the most? And I knew how to build modern leaders, and I knew how to create irresistible culture that drives results. And so I put all my energy into that, and I started Heartbeat for Hire. And that's what led me to write the book, start the podcast, and do speaking and coaching and all of those things.
Oh, that's awesome. You and I talked about that shared experience of losing that identity and being abruptly fired, and where do we go from here? And we both came up with similar paths. And I think part of it for me as well was I know part of it was okay, I'm not going to go back to a corporate setting and build something for someone else. I have to, whatever I do next, I'm building for me. Because I played that game and it didn't work out, or the cards didn't fall in my favor. So I'm going to build it for me now and go from there.
Yeah, it was personal. I mean, that was the real impetus for it, because I was wronged. And the woman that fired me was, she wanted me to be a micromanager, something I was never going to be. And she said to me, she goes, "Lyndsay, you have really strong EQ. I don't." I'm like, "I agree. You don't." And I didn't want anybody to be under that kind of leadership again. So I'm like, I have a voice. I'm pretty good on camera. I'm going to use it. Let's go. And it's been my mission since I started to change leadership and show people what good leadership looks and feels like.
Yeah. So the term I referenced it in your bio of eliminating toxic leadership, and you've experienced it. I've experienced it. Why do you think those behaviors though get so rewarded?
Yeah.
Even when companies claim to value culture, somehow the toxic leadership still bubbles to the top.
The simplest answer is most leaders take their high performers and they want to replicate what that high performer has done. And they say, "Okay, you just crushed your quota, so we're going to make you a manager." Now, the big mistake in that is not asking the question of, why do you want to be a leader? Why do you want to be a manager? Because what I see happen more often than not is those people don't care about others. They're in it for themselves, and they get very frustrated with their team who can't do exactly what they did. And so they create this unattainable, frustrating, very limited trust environment, and people aren't thriving. They're just getting by, just getting through, hoping to not be exposed. And when you have those environments of low psychological safety and low trust, people are never going to perform the way you want them to. And I've sat on both sides of that fence. And when you have the environment with the autonomy, with the trust, you'll do anything for those leaders. And I certainly felt that way about mine, but I was unstoppable in those environments. I crushed my numbers, did my biggest deals, did the most innovative stuff, had the best ideas, versus, you can see the body language when your team is not engaged. They push back from the chair, the arms are crossed, there's, no facial expressions. Your people are not inspired. And I'm sorry, if you're a leader, that's your job. You got to inspire them. You've got to find a way to get to them, motivate them, get them excited, make them feel rewarded and seen. That's on you.
Yeah. It's such a great point that the best salespeople don't make the greatest leaders.
No.
I have a great friend who owned a exteriors company, and he just sold it to private equity a couple of years ago. I was at a pool party out at his house, and he had a lot of his team there, and he introduced me to his top sales guy. And then we got into conversation later. He's like, the guy crushes it, $700,000-$800,000 a year that he'll make on selling gutters and roofing. He's a unique bird. And I was like, hey, and we're just getting into business conversation because that's what us, people do. And I was like, so with the rest of your sales team, do you replicate his language? Do you have him in there to try and motivate some of these newer ones? And he's like, hell no. I was like, all right, tell me more. He goes, that dude is so unique. Anything that we do, anything that they would try to copy would be an HR nightmare or a big problem or a liability or anything of that nature. Like, we just let him go do his thing, and I train the rest of them. And I was like, all right, that's wise, because sometimes you do get those people that just they're so good at being them, authentically them, and their language would not be replicatable to anyone else, or their style or whatever it may be. So he doesn't make a great leader, and he wouldn't make a great trainer to the rest of the salespeople. And it's a good recognition from a leader to know that, okay, you go do you, I'm going to take care of the rest of the sales team and make sure they get up to speed.
Oh, Josh, I had a very similar situation. I was managing a woman. She was phenomenal. She had I think since I knew her, she had more than $2 million commission checks. And she was crushing it. But she stepped on everyone along the way. And I would field calls all the time. Like, I'm not working with her. So I'll work with you, but I'm not working with her. And I have to do her contracts, but I don't want to work with her. I have to do this, but I'm not going to do it. And so I had to pull her in and was just like, hey, listen, I don't know why no one's ever told you this before, but this is not the way to work. People are not excited to work with you. And this is a really bad reputation. So I'm going to ask you to please reconsider how you're talking to your team, because you will have no support and I'm not going to keep bailing you out. And she said, Lyndsay, no one's ever said that to me before. And she respected me a ton as a result and confided in me for years since I managed her. But somebody wanted to make her a manager. And I was like, over my dead body, do not ever do that. And I understand why you want to do that, but she does not care about people at all. Like, she only cares about what she's doing and her clients. But yeah, she would have been a disaster of a leader. That's
right. And I will give this one last thing on this topic. So we talked about it from the leadership aspect, don't do it, but also from the employee aspect, they got to know what they want, right? Yes. So the employee, I always give this example to my teams, because my brother started selling for CDW when he got out of college, and he was doing quite well. And they kept asking him to be a manager, and he's emotionally astute enough to go, I don't want that.
Yeah.
And the reason he didn't want that is he saw his managers actually making less money and dealing with more stress, more bullshit.
So
and so he was very wise to say, no, I'm going to stay where I'm at. And he's no longer with that company anymore. But that was wise on his part. So the employee, you got to know, do you actually want that leadership? Because leadership is a responsibility. It is extra stuff. It is a lot of, so the title may seem good. However, if you're not willing to deal with what it takes to be a leader, you shouldn't take that extra step.
Amen. Can we say that louder? And guys, if you have an opportunity to be a leader, please do not take the job if you don't care about people. Just don't. It is not for you. And you're just going to make a mess. So don't.
And it's absolutely okay to not, right? Like, we need great salespeople, great crushers to go push the product, to push the service, whatever it may be. that is 100% okay from us leaders.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. You got to care about people and about them more than yourselves if you're actually going to take on that leadership mantle. All right. So kind of in that vein, though, do you think that power, from your experience, do you think power changes people or just reveals who they really are?
So I think a lot of people get into leadership for the wrong reasons, and one of those is power. I think they might not have a lot of control in their life, and they view this as great. I can make people do what I want. I can rule over this team, and it's such a fleeting feeling that once you get there, no, it's a lot of responsibility. It's not about power. And if you are a good leader, you recognize you're responsible to your people. I think people are seeking power and control in their life because our life is, for the most part, not in our control. We cannot control the politics around us. We can't control, how our kids behave when they're not in the house. We can't control, so many things that are happening, traffic, whatever, that when you mistakenly feel like, oh, I can control this situation or I can control this team, it's going to fulfill you somehow. But that's not the point. And I think power, to me, when you lift people up regularly, when you celebrate them regularly, when you tell people how great Josh is on this show and everything he does, that looks good on me. And the power comes from creating that incredibly powerful and positive voice. And I think that's where people miss it. There's this scarcity mindset of, if I talk about people on my team and I extol their praises and I say how great they are, it's taking away from me. And it's actually the opposite. You are so much better off celebrating the people on your team at every turn, because that looks really good on you. It instills trust. It creates psychological safety. It does so many good things for them, for you. And the other thing that it does, when you say, hey, you guys, I want Connor to take the floor. Connor, tell everybody what you just did on that last sales call and the results that came from it. First of all, I recognize Connor. Connor feels good. His chest gets puffed out. He's excited. But everyone else on the team is going, I want her to talk about me like that. I want to be in the spotlight. And when you're a leader and you do this often, you're creating this environment of celebration. You're creating an environment that's infectious and joyous. And can I tell a little story about this?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. So there's a VP of, it was like a call center kind of environment. Picture BDMs or SDRs all kind of doing their thing, prairie dogging over the cubicles. And this VP came in and she started this practice of walking around the cubicles. And anytime she heard a good call or a good interaction, she would put a Post-it note on their desk, like, nice job, loved your tone on that last call, or congrats on that last sale. And she would drop off like 3 or 4 of them each day. And so the team would look forward to seeing, like, where's she going this time? What's going to happen now? And so they were hoping that they would be recognized. But what happened next was even cooler. They all started doing it for each other. They all started saying, hey, great job on that last sale. And they're giving each other Post-it notes. And so that environment shifted and the results did too. And so anybody that thinks that leading with heart is soft and it's soft skills, I don't call them soft skills. I call them power skills. These are the game changers. These are the keys to helping your team reach the absolute pinnacle of success. And that whole, like, I told you to do this, you have a quota, like cracking the whip kind of mentality, that's tired. It doesn't motivate people. Fear is never going to make people perform. It's just going to make them second guess themselves. So yeah, try and be that generous leader because your results will come.
I love it. My dad did something similar, not with Post-it notes, but I watched him for years and years get the weekly sales reports, and he had them individually printed out, and he actively looked for reasons to write them a note and just say, good job, or nice case, or whatever it may be. And so when I bought the firm from him, I continued that because I understood why he did it. We had
Yeah.
this big, kind of mail room, and every advisor had their own mail, like little slit of a mailbox,
Yeah.
and he would go after he write his notes and drop them in. And so I would do the same thing when I took over the firm, because when I was an advisor, I appreciated, even though it was my dad, getting those notes, those attaboys,
Well,
and it's just so rewarding.
I love that he did that, but what he did was he made you feel seen. And that's all anybody wants in this world. So when you can do that in the business world, and this is the place where you spend the most time, if you feel seen, you're going to show up with your heart. You're going to show up with your determination and your grit. And there's a really big difference between, doing your job and enjoying your job. So, I mean, I'd
Yeah.
rather create the environment where people are fired up to be there and feeling connected and included and seen.
Yeah. And even if it is just to get that little note in your mailbox, you go that little extra effort.
And you
But I want to go
save
back
them.
to you. Did I did save some of them.
Yeah.
You want to go back to your control point,
Mm,
because as I've grown, and I'm a control freak, I've just learned that there's very little that I have control over as I've grown older. So I've in my coaching, I've told people there's only 3 businesses in this world. One is your business. The
mhm.
other, the second one is others' business, and the third is God's business. And only one of those do we have control over. So I'm hyper focused on me, my business, so that because that's the only one I have control over. I
Yeah.
can't control how, if I say something off today and Lyndsay reacts to that, or I can't control her feelings. I can't control the weather outside. That's God's business. So I can only focus on me. And once you realize that there's only those 3 businesses in the world, you can start to focus more on yours and letting the rest kind of fall where it may.
Yeah, I think Mel Robbins says it best, let them, right? You just have to let people do what they're going to do. And if you can continue to be that positive force, people are going to want to be around you. They're going to want to work for you. They're going to want to be a part of you. They're going to want to collaborate and communicate and connect. I've proven it over and over again.
Yeah. Someone asked me my opinion on her the other day, and I was like, I don't know that I've ever met someone or seen someone that has taken the most simple, remedial thing and turning it into a #1 best-selling book. And she's done it 3 or 4 times already.
Yeah.
And
She,
it's no I'm not saying that's to be disrespectful.
no,
I'm saying that's freaking genius.
she's really smart. I mean, you don't have to like her personality, but her concept is spot on. And it's not a hard one to figure out. But I've, raising teenagers, that is a really good philosophy because they get really wrapped around the axle on dumb stuff. And that's just wasted energy. So
Well, speaking of being a mom, what leadership lessons have you carried over the most from the workplace to your home life?
I love this question because every once in a while I'll catch myself doing something maybe not so not so good of why did you do this? La, la, la," whatever it is. And, parents knee jerk sometimes when their kids do dumb things, but I have to remind myself that that's not going to motivate them. That's not going to make them feel like they can come talk to me. And the other thing is they're twins. And, even though they had the exact same environment, the exact same toys, the same bedroom, the same womb, everything was the same, they are entirely different humans. And they need different things and they need different parenting. And if that isn't the best example for what modern leaders need to do right now, you have to meet people where they are. You have to ask them how you can be the best leader for them. How can I support you? What do you need? And when you understand what those answers are, you put yourself in a position for success and you put them in a position where they're going to trust you more. And building trust, it's so important to do at home. I want my kids tell me everything, probably things that I shouldn't know. But I would rather that than them feeling like I can't talk to her or I'm afraid to talk to her, or if I tell her this, she's going to kill me. They know where they stand, but
Yeah.
they understand how important trust is. And we kind of joke that if my husband and I are going to go out of town, they're left here to their own devices. and they could throw a party. They could do all kinds of nonsensical things, but they choose not to. And they know that they would break trust. And that's really important in this house. So yeah, a couple good
Well, I
lessons.
love that. Those are great lessons. And it made me think of, I have some friends that are twins and I have some friends that have twins. And I know one of the things, because you hit on it, they're very different people. You know, the world kind of outside of the home just refers to them, whether it's class, their friends, whatever, they say the twins.
Yeah.
And they kind of treat them as like
A
a
couple.
couple, right? Yeah. And so how have you done in the home with differentiating those two?
Oh.
Because the rest of the world's, especially as long as they stay together, treats them as a couple.
Yeah, this is one thing my husband and I did from early on was we separated them often. And any parent of multiples will tell you that 2 in the early days is really, really hard. But 1 was like, this is a cakewalk. So my husband would take my son to Home Depot, or he'd take my daughter to the market, or, we would take 1 kid. So, if we're running errands, that 1 kid was like, oh my gosh, this is nothing. I can carry 1 car seat. I can carry 1 bag. This is fine. So we always tried to have that one-on-one time with them. Now, there are twins all over my family, and we have triplets too. So we're used to the whole like referring to people as 2. And I will say with my kids, my daughter looks just like me and my son looks just like my husband. So you could kind of pick them out of a crowd and be like, those are Dowd kids. We know who they are. But I think the one thing that I struggle with, and I think every parent of multiples does, is you cannot always parent the same. And it's because of what they need. So my girlfriend who has triplets, she's like, we have 1 child we refer to as the expensive child because she rides horses. And what she needs is different than one of her girls that doesn't need much. So you can't win that battle of, I always try to do the same. I'm very, very fair, and my kids know that, but my son doesn't need as much as my daughter. He doesn't need bags and makeup and, changing his clothes all the time. He needs spikes for track, and he needs sneakers, and he needs, time with his coach. And so they just have different needs. And so, really treating them the way they need to be treated, I think is really important, and a way that I get away from that lumping them together. Now, if we're going somewhere, I'll say I'm bringing the twins because that's easier than saying I'm bringing Trip and Hadley. But yeah, they really have had a very distinct and separate existence, even though they're twins. And I will say they get along great when they're apart. So when they're, one's at sleepaway camp and one's somewhere else, they check in on each other a lot, and they tell each other they love them. And it's really very sweet.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
My dad always beat this into my head. I'm the oldest of 4. And, if I ever felt I was being treated unfairly, or that my younger sibling got something that I didn't get when I was their age, he always looked me dead in the eyes and be like, I treat you guys fairly, but not equally.
Yeah.
And
That's
he
true.
kept that as a business lesson. He kept that with everything. And so I've always remembered it.
Dad's a smart guy, man.
He's just a very smart dude. Yeah, I learned a lot of leadership lessons from him. And I wrote in my book about him as well, as like, I got the most from my dad in the 11 years that I worked with him. I got to see the best version of dad and best version of leader in the 11 years that I worked with him.
Oh, yeah. What a gift. Good for you. Well, hopefully your kids get to see that in you now.
Yeah, that's the hope, and do it even better, right? So you also talk about reinvention at any age. What internal beliefs or fears keep high-performing leaders stuck long after they've outgrown their current version of themselves?
Yeah, I think people get really stuck on this, I'm supposed to do, or I'm supposed to be. And I certainly felt that way in my corporate life. I thought like, these are the steps that I have to take in order to be perceived that I'm doing all the right things, that I'm on the right track, that I'm getting the right accolades, that I'm taking the right roles. And my career was very squiggly. I did a lot of first of a kind jobs. I built a lot of first of a kind businesses for IBM. So I liked being weird. I liked doing different. I liked being the woman you call when you want something fixed, when you want to break something, when you want to try something new. And that was my reputation. But when you leave corporate life and you, for the first time, have choices and how you want to define yourself, that's really scary and it's really fun. And I will say, for anybody that wants to make a change, it's never too late. You can do it at any age. I built my business at 50. And I never expected to be an entrepreneur. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I thought I would be great at knowing all these things because I did this hard stuff. I didn't know jack shit about being an entrepreneur. And it was quite a lesson. And I learned the power of community. I learned the power of asking for help and leaning on other people who are doing it really well. And I also learned I had to get really comfortable making mistakes. And all of those things, I think, they humble you, but they also give you a power and a growth that you wouldn't get by just doing what was pre-programmed or preordained or what you're supposed to do. So I welcome the uncomfortable. That's kind of the only state I'm in.
Well, it's so powerful because I know you've experienced these moments where it's just an overwhelming sense of joy because you did that. You did that really hard thing, or you overcame that really hard thing. Something that everyone else would have either never attempted or told you couldn't have done it. And like, it's a feeling like when you accomplish that, whether it's holding that book in your hands for the first time, or I held this, for my book launch, had a bunch of world-class speakers in town, put this event together. There's so much stress on me, the team, everything. The day goes so well, and I literally go home and collapse in my wife's arms and just cry.
Yeah.
Because it was just like it came together. Like something that wasn't supposed to be, something you've never done before. Like, it's a feeling you can't describe until you've actually done it. And those of you that are choosing to hold yourself back or stay stagnant or mail it in, like, you're missing out on just this amazing experience and feeling.
Well, and go be curious. I mean, I think you and I talked about this last time. When you're thinking about a podcast, the first thing I say to anybody, and I get a lot of calls from people that are like, Lyndsay, you've been doing this a while. Can you talk to me about your show? And I'll say, yeah, if you're thinking of doing a podcast, that's a 5-year commitment. And they kind of go, whoa. And I want them to think about it that way because nobody taught me that. And I was like, I don't even really listen to podcasts. This was at the time when I started it. I'm like, why am I doing this? And I had an advisor who's like, you're good on camera. You're curious. Go. And I'll help you with your first couple of guests and you'll be on your way. And that wasn't the right reason to start, but I've loved it since. And I think there is such a feeling of accomplishment and pride that it's mine. I built it and it's got awards and it's been recognized and people learn from it. And that's what I get to put out into the world. And nobody gets to claim that but me. So I would just encourage anybody who's got that itch, who thinks there's something else out there for them to try, do it. Start the side hustle. This is no longer the world of no moonlighting. Like, we had those contracts back in the day where you couldn't take on other jobs, and now it's the norm. So try.
Yeah. And you get affirmations in the strangest of places too. People that you don't even think are listening or watching or whatever, don't interact. This happened on Sunday. I was flying to Seattle to see a client. I'm in the airport here in Madison. And I was just grabbing a water from the little convenience shop, or Hudson News or whatever it is in the airport. And I'm doing the self-checkout, but there was a woman behind the counter. And she goes, hey, I know you. I watch all your social media stuff. It's so inspiring. So thank you. I'm like, oh. And she's like, goes on to tell me that she started this nonprofit that's passing on kindness in the local community. And she just works at the airport to fund the mission. I'm like, that's freaking awesome.
I love that.
You just never know where it's going to come from.
A
little what?
If you listen, I just said, can we just do a little PSA? Like, if you love a creator and you love what they're putting out into the world, just tell them. Send them a note, send them something on LinkedIn, tell them on Instagram, just tell them, because those of us that are out here grinding and trying to make a beautiful show or a really well-written book, gosh, it feels good to get that validation that, yeah, it's making a difference. So please don't hold back.
That's
We love
such a good
hearing.
PSA.
Yeah.
It is, because there's so much negativity online, and what we see in our feeds. Like, for the ones actually making an impact in your life, like, just tell them.
Yeah. And we don't know who's watching our shows. Like, we can't tell. So unless you tell us, we don't know unless they comment, and then you know. But
That's 100% accurate. Like, Alec could tell us all the numbers on YouTube, analytics on Spotify, on Apple,
yep.
but we don't know who those individuals are. So that's a great, great point. There's something else on that topic of reinvention. Oh, the people that just mail it in. You were 50 years old when you made this hard pivot. Like, is that not the saddest comment to come out of someone's mouth, whether they're 40, 50, 60? Like, there's so much life left to give.
Yeah.
Why would you mail it in on yourself? Or especially for if you have kids, mailing it in on yourself is mailing it in on them.
I love that you said that. I think you have to remember your kids are watching everything you're doing. And I certainly knew people that were like, I don't want to make any waves. I'm just going to keep my job, collect my paycheck, stay under the radar. And, there's some safety in that. It's not real inspired, but I guess, there are people that just like doing the ho-hum and I want to just stay beneath the fray. But that's just not how I am. That's not how I live. That's not how you are. And I expect more for myself. I always want to be, trying something different, harder, newer, accomplishing something new. And, everything you talked about in the intro, I did that in the last 3 years. So that's a lot of stuff that was brand new to me. And I love it. And I am not afraid to get my hands dirty and try something new. And you know what? Not everything is great. Not every podcast episode is great. There are parts of my book, a little cringe, whatever, we move on. But I'm human. So I keep trying, and it's up to you to decide if you want to do the same.
That is spot on. And I'm exactly on your page. I'm like, no, create the waves, because that wake and that ripple effect are those people that you impact down the road, whether it's your kids or people that you don't even know are watching.
Yeah. I also think we have a responsibility as humans to create a better world. And if you are going to be that voice to lead people to do it, that's a good look on you. And you're giving back, you're making the world a better place, and you can stay under the radar. You can do those things, but what impact are you having? I hope it's somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, that's 100% on par with what I talk about as well. Is like, people keep voting and thinking these politicians are coming to save them. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on.
Haven't been saved yet.
They're not. If you've lived to whatever duration of life you've lived, 25, 45, 65, doesn't matter. It hasn't happened yet. No. So it's on you to create the better world inside your world and inside your community. It's on all of us. So just keep that in mind.
That's back to the control thing. So if you're waiting for someone to come change your life, good luck. You're going to be waiting a long time.
Till the time you're buried. So I know this next question is really important to you and me because we both suffered identity loss. But many leaders tie their identity to their performance or their title. And how do you help people separate who they are from what they've achieved without losing their edge?
Yeah, I love this question. I get to work with a lot of leaders, a lot of executives on their LinkedIn profiles. And this is the easiest way to answer this question. So, the first thing I say is, well, it says you're VP of sales or general manager or president of whatever. That's just a title. What else? And so many of them are like, wait, what? And I go, okay, so here's the thing. We're all multi-hyphenates. We all do more than just this job. So I want to represent you that way. I want you to think about yourself that way. And it really kind of forces them to reframe who they are and how they want to show up in the world. And it creates kind of an open thinking that they probably haven't had to entertain before. And sometimes we don't finish it during the session that we're together because I want them to go back and think about it. And I always tell them, hey, this isn't set in stone. If you think of something over the weekend and you want to change it, go change it. But I always say, you're going to put a few things that you care about professionally, but you're also going to put some things that you care about personally. And at some people are like, what do you mean? I want to separate my work person from my personal person. And I go, no, you're one person. And what makes you successful is that you are that combination of things, and your interests make people interested in you. So in my LinkedIn profile, it says mom of twins and it says wiener dog lover. I have dachshunds and I think they're awesome and adorable and weird and funny. And the amount of people that connect on those two things, it's remarkable, but they connect because it's easy. It's a softball. So if you are a CEO, first of all, if you're a CEO and you're not leveraging LinkedIn, you are asleep at the wheel. You get, I think it's something like 300%, it might even be more than that, 367% more reach just by nature of the fact that you are a C-suite executive. And brands are 82% more trustworthy when their executives post. So when you think of it that way, and the power that you yield just by nature of your title, don't waste it. Let people know who you are. Let people know who you stand for or what you stand for. And that's going to really create a different level of trust, a different level of engagement. And your teams will be inspired by that. Gone are the days where I was doing a keynote for a company and I said, if you want, I can do a LinkedIn workshop for your executives. And the woman that booked me was like, oh, no, I don't want that. And I said, why? And she said, well, they're going to go look for new jobs. And I go, oh, that's a really dated way to think about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a platform for expertise, and it's the opportunity for you to build your brand. And when your people are encouraged to post or encouraged to engage, that looks good on you. That looks good on your brand. That means that your customers are seeing your sellers or your executives or your teams out in the world trying to talk about what it is the company stands for. And that's a good thing. So there's a whole lot of meat on that bone. But I really feel like people are missing the idea of, oh, I'm VP of business development, or I'm this, because you're so much more than that.
Yep. I take it to their epithet even. You want on your tombstone that you were the VP of sales, or do you want that you were a loving father, loving husband, an amazing leader, wiener dog lover, whatever? I would rather have wiener dog lover on my epithet than I would have of exited 3 companies or whatever. It's just, so if you think about it all the way to your legacy, it actually brings you back or if you experience loss of identity like you and I have, you're like, no, I'm way more than just my title or just my business or just my position.
Yeah, I think there's a real gift in giving people that and saying, I see so much more than what you're showing here. And they're like, you do? Yeah, I do. So talk about it. So
and your LinkedIn point, that is so outdated. I actually had one of the original LinkedIn people on my podcast, I think it was earlier this year. And he was the CMO and ran HR and stuff of that nature. And it started out as a job search function and has now turned into a connection function. And I mentor a young advisor out east, and he has leveraged it to the hilt where he's got over 50,000 followers now. And he gets the majority of his clients through there in their exact target market because he posts who he is and what he does. And he just communicates really effectively through LinkedIn. And people know if they reach out to him, they know exactly who he is and what they're going to get. So he's broken that barrier of know, like, and trust through his LinkedIn posts.
Yeah, I'll tell you, all of my buddies who have figured this out, they're not afraid to do those personal posts of I have a friend, she has a huge following, and she's like, I just did a post on pie, apple, blueberry, etc. She goes, it got so many comments and so much buzz. She goes, it had nothing to do with what I do for work, but people are seeking connection. They're seeking levity. They're seeking these moments of just like, let's just be humans together. And you can strike that balance of, I'm an expert at what I do. I know my shit, but I also have a little fun. I have a sense of humor. And these are some of the things I love. So,
Yeah. And by the way, you know who I was talking about there.
yes.
Because he introduced us.
Yeah. Love him.
And he does a phenomenal job. And I've taught so many other people. I was like, hey, go watch him.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And that's how you do it. Like he's a shining example of how you do it and connect on LinkedIn and build a true business and following.
Yeah, Mondo is one of my favorites to watch. And Mondo Salavanti, if you're not connected to him, go follow him. He's crushing it on LinkedIn and in life. And he is a guy who leads with enormous heart. But my favorite thing about Mondo is that he wasn't always that way. So he started off as kind of a jerk of a leader, and he recognized that wasn't profitable. It wasn't smart. It certainly wasn't good for his people. And since changing that, his business has exploded. So I love that.
And he's just grown with it because he's humble enough to learn and take those hits to the chin. And that's what's admirable, because I saw, and why I've enjoyed mentoring him is because I see so much of my former self in him. And that's how I was in my 20s. Like I was a football player, kind of just came from the locker room of like you're hard charging. And like you said earlier, not everyone identifies with that leadership. So we got to figure it out and kind of in the pendulum, not swing it too far one way or the other, but play the middle and figure out what people actually, or how they want to receive the message. Awesome. Agree. So this big topic nowadays is, there's many, but one is burnout. And burnout is often labeled as weakness. So from what you've seen, what is burnout actually trying to tell leaders that they're ignoring?
Yeah, I think burnout comes first from disengagement. And, there's two sides to that, actually. So you either have overworked, which causes burnout, or you have the people that are just fed up and they're just tired and they've pushed back from the table. And the quickest way to help you get underneath that is to ask this one very simple question, which is a humbling question, because you are admitting you don't know everything. And that question is, how can I be the best leader for you? And everybody's going to answer it differently, just like we talked about with kids and parenting. Everybody has different goals, different needs, different career paths in mind. And it's on you as the leader to support that and figure out what it is they need and how you can remove obstacles to get them there. So if you're asking that question and you know how everybody's doing on your team as a senior leader, and you ask all of your leaders to do this, you can say, hey, Josh, what's going on with your team? You're going to have it at your fingertips. So-and-so is a flight risk. So-and-so needs more education on this. So-and-so needs a coach. And this person, I think, needs to be promoted. Like, you're going to have such a clear picture on who these people are. And it's incumbent on you as a leader to take the time to get to know them. And if you're not, they're either going to exit the business, or they're going to go down in a ball of flames, or they're going to end up on a PIP. And you have a lot of contribution you can make to prevent those things. Not all of it is preventable, but it's a great way for you to really invest and support the people the way they need it.
Yeah. And you said earlier, caring, right? You don't get into leadership if you don't care about people. This is a step in caring about people. And I would even take it a step further of understanding them on a personal level versus just a professional level. So like this person's been working their butt off, but they seem a little off. Well, if you come to find out their wife is battling cancer and they're stuck with the kids and they're not sleeping well because they're helping with the kids and now they're coming to work just, dead tired, like that's a major impactor. And now you have the opportunity to care even more and have empathy and understanding. And so it's getting to know them, not just professionally, but caring enough to know them personally.
Well, and if you stop and you ask those questions and you do that discovery for that person that does have that family member struggling at home, they're never going to forget the kindness you showed them. And, it's always amazing to me when people crawl out of the woodwork and they say, I remember you when you did this for me. I remember you because you did this. And that is a beautiful legacy to have. And what I tell all new leaders is the second you become someone's manager, you also become the topic of dinner conversation. So make sure it's good.
Yeah, it's so good. I got a message a year or two ago, just a private DM from someone that was a young advisor at my firm. And he gave me a compliment, just kind of like what you said. Hey, I remember this. And the example was this. We were in a Monday morning meeting huddle. We were going over numbers. People were getting congratulations, stuff of that nature. I was visiting one of my offices, and he had his wallet out on the table, and it was just run down, ragged wallet. And people in the room, the other kind of guys, were razzing him about it. And I stopped him, the razzing, and I said, hey, guys, he can afford another wallet. There's a reason he doesn't.
Yeah.
It was his grandfather's wallet, and his grandfather died. And so he's going to hang on to that thing as long as he can. And he shot me that message, and he said that was an experience I'll never forget.
Yeah. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much, but seeing somebody and recognizing, like, you put a stop to the razzing, which to them was probably like, oh, we're in the doghouse. But they all saw it, and they'll never forget that. And as a leader, you have the responsibility. So, we have all these teams where we have that one top performer who's just a cancer to the team. If you're going to sit idly by and let it continue, you're creating that toxic culture. You're a part of it. So you have a responsibility to everybody else on the team to stop it. And just like I did with that woman that was doing so well, no one wanted to work with her. And it was coming back on me because I had to deal with it, and I didn't want to deal with it anymore. So you have to step up. You have to, have those uncomfortable conversations. But I'm telling you, if you lead with heart, more often than not, when you have to have those tough conversations, they come easier.
Absolutely. Oh man, we have burned through time in this tremendous conversation. So I always ask this final one, Lyndsay, and I didn't prep you for it. So we'll see what comes to mind for you. What's an unpopular belief that you hold to be true that most others would disagree with you on?
An unpopular belief.
A hill you die on. It can be on anything we've talked about or anything just in general.
I mean, I've said it a few times. I don't feel like there's ever enough heart in business, and business can be cutthroat. And of course there's quotas. Of course there's deadlines. Of course there's boards and stock prices and all of those things. But if you want the best out of your business, you have to lead with heart. You have to leverage power skills. You have to teach your people that it is okay to have really strong EQ, and not just okay, it's welcome and it's wanted. And any of these leaders who stick to that, no, just get your job done, just do your work, shut up, don't say anything, I'm telling you, you're doing it wrong. And I will die on the mat saying that, because I've just seen it, I've lived it, I've proven it. And it's so important that leaders get this. It's what modern leadership is. And if you call yourself a leader, you better not be doing that bad stuff.
Leaders that care more, win more. I love it.
They do.
All right. So where can our audience follow you or connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on all the socials. It's Lyndsay Dowd, H4H. I'm sure you're going to put it in the show notes because you can't spell my name right on the first go. But you can also find me on my website, heartbeatforhire.com. I'm definitely on LinkedIn. Say you saw me here with Josh. Tell us if you enjoyed the show, and please tell Josh that he's doing a really good job. He likes to hear it. I do too. And you can check out my podcast just like Josh. It's on YouTube and all the audio platforms. It's called the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. And I also have a live streaming show on Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, and it's called the Leadership Lounge. And
it is tremendous. So I would highly encourage that. And if and when you hit her up on LinkedIn, tell her your biggest takeaway from the show. I know she'd love to hear it.
I'd love to hear it. I would.
Well, it's been a tremendous honor to have you on. You have a very Merry Christmas with your family in El Salvador. It's amazing. And Spartans, remember to share this episode far and wide. Remember that good and great are the enemies of possible. Lead like a Spartan today.
This is Sparta!